It's a common sense recap of the big stories. It's Katz and Cosby on 77 WABC.
And joining us now to talk about all of this, we have Professor Alan Dershowitz. Professor Dershowitz, first of all, your reaction to Penny, the big decision, not guilty on the lesser charge, the other one dismissed, and then the threats now against Daniel Penny. He is getting death threats.
Oh, yeah. Look, it really shows how unpredictable jury verdicts are from every rational point of view. Every rational point of view. The deliberations on the lower charge should have been at least as deadlocked as the deliberation on the higher charge. Why, as you said, why would anybody who thought he was guilty on the higher charge acquit him on the lower charge? But obviously they just got tired. They gave up. They realized they weren't going to win. They didn't want to have a hung jury, so they went along with it. But it's totally irrational. Nobody could have predicted that, which is why it's so difficult to predict jury verdicts. It's even much easier to predict court decisions. That's why I'm sometimes called Nostra Dershowitz, because I get the predictions right about court decisions. But on jury decisions, you can't ever predict anything. Turning for a minute, though, to the CEO killing and the arrest in Altoona, there's something missing here. Was this guy not recognized by his family for 3 days after the pictures came out? I don't believe it. I can't believe that family members who knew this guy was off the grid for months, they hear about this horrible murder. They know he's been through the surgery. They see the picture, and they don't call anybody. Now, CNN got it wrong about an hour ago when one of its expert commentators said it's a crime not to report when you know for sure the person is guilty. It's not in America. It is in some European countries. It's not in America. You can know for 100% certainty that somebody's guilty. You can know for 100% certainty that he's wanted. And as long as you don't actively take a part in trying to keep the government from learning about it, you have no obligation to support it except a moral obligation. So I'm wondering if we're going to find out whether these family members who've now hired a private lawyer to defend him, were morally complicit a little bit in not turning him in earlier. Remember that happened with the Unabomber. The brother didn't turn him in, he knew, and then finally he turned him in.
You bring up, I thought the same thing, because those pictures of this guy were pretty clear. And especially the one where his mouth, the mask was down at the hostel. He's smiling. If I knew the guy, I would be able to pinpoint him. It is troubling.
If a person in McDonald's identified him with a mask on who didn't know him.
I agree.
What are his mother and father and others? What were they saying? I'd like to know the answer to that. The other news today, of course, is we have some news on Fani Willis, that she's being in trouble again because she won't comply with court orders. What we're seeing are DAs doing worse things than some of the people they're trying. When you put Alvin Bragg together with Fani Willis, you get worried about law enforcement in America. These are two of the worst DAs in the history of the United States. Certainly, Bragg is the worst DA in modern history of New York. We know what a distinguished group preceded him, from Thomas Dewey, to Bob Morgenthau. But this guy, it's just impossible, and he ought to be defeated for election, or just he ought to be subject to bar scrutiny for bringing these cases, for bringing the Donald Trump case, and so. It's we live in.
Well, it goes back to Professor Dershowitz. Goes back to what we were talking about. All these lawyers with the Bar Association, when there was no rule of law, not one of them stood up. There's no rule of law, and I mean, they don't deserve to be a member of the Bar Association.
Yeah, look, I think bar associations really have to look in the mirror these days. They're going after lawyers who just defended clients if they don't like the clients, people who defended Donald Trump, the 65 projects going after all of them, even came after me. And yet they're not going after the villains here, the real villains, Fani Willis, Alvin Bragg. These are the people bar associations ought to be going after, because these people control the lives and liberty of thousands and thousands of people, and they're not doing the right job. And so I'm really concerned about that.
You know,
who will guard the guardians?
Professor Dershowitz, also your reaction to all these threats of coming from Black Lives Matter and others against Daniel Penny. I mean, some of the vitriol.
I think that one of the statements made when this guy, the head of the Black Lives Matter, walked right up to Penny in front of a group of people and said, "Buddy, remember, it's a small world." That may go beyond what the First Amendment permits. That, to me, sounds like a veiled threat at the very least, and a pretty overt threat. For me, the criteria is, if somebody said that to me, would I go out and get a bodyguard? And boy, believe me, I would get a bodyguard if somebody came up to me after a case like this and said, "Buddy, this is a small world." It means we're going to get you.
And Alan, it's Richard Weinberg. Good to talk to you again. Let me also point out that he's now called, the head of the BLM in New York is called for black vigilantism.
Yeah, he's gone further. He said, if they choke us, we should do the same to them. This is the guy from Black Lives Matter. Look, Black Lives Matter as a matter of morality, but the organization Black Lives Matter is a despicable, horrible organization that no one should ever support. They are anti-Semitic. They are anti-white. They are anti-everything decent.
And they're a shakedown operation.
Huh?
And they are a shakedown operation.
And they put money in their pocket. So, as a philosopher once said, starts out as a cause, then it becomes a movement, then it becomes a racket. And that's what it's become, a racket. And so nobody should support the Black Lives Matter New York. Nobody should support Black Lives Matter Chicago. Nobody should support Black Lives Matter, period. You should support Black lives, definitely, but not the organizations.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you so much, Professor Dershowitz. We love having you here on the show.
Thank you. I always love being on. I look forward to Tuesdays.
Yes, we do too. We always love having you.
Tuesday is always the best day.
And what was it, Dershadamas? What did you call yourself? What was that? I love that.
Yeah, Mark Levin coined that phrase about me.
Well, it's appropriate. Great to have you here, Professor. Thank you.